Hey everybody, Rest here. Today we're going to be talking about the Opus 22 cards, and I'm joined by my good friends Pat and Emmanuel. We're all three of us are very excited for this set. There's a lot of interesting stuff. Would you two like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Emmanuel Padilla, former competitor for the game and trying to get back into it this year. I'll be trying to see what the best competitive value is for the cards. Hopefully, if my opinion still, stands up.
And my name is Pat. I've been playing the game for about 4 years now. I like approaching the game from more of a Johnny player profile. So for those who don't know, it's more of like interested. I'm more interested in like cool interactions and doing crazy things with my decks. But because of the Materia Cups this year, I'm also shifting to a more competitive mindset for the season. Definitely looking forward to this set.
Yeah, and my name is Chris, and I'm also, planning on playing competitively this season, so I'm approaching this with a competitive mindset. I've been playing since Opus 18, so I'm kind of a newbie compared to these two, but yeah, I've been playing a lot. This game is dope, so I'm very excited for the competitive season this year. It's going to be my first time traveling for card game tournaments. Yeah. All right. So the order that we're going to go in, we're going to talk about the limit break cards first. And then we're going to go in element order. I figure that it's probably best for us to talk about the limit break mechanic as a whole and talk about the cards that we're getting in each element before going through all of the elements cards, because some of the implications for limit break apply to like a lot of the cards in this set, so it's kind of difficult to evaluate a lot of these cards without taking into account like limit break as an entire mechanic. But yeah, let's jump straight into the first limit break cards. Pat, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Do we want to read out the? Do we want to go straight into the red cards or talk about limit break in general first?
I think we should describe what limit break does, for people who are listening.
Oh, true. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can do that. So Limit Break is a brand new mechanic in the game, in which it's essentially for people who have played Yu-Gi-Oh! In the past. It's essentially an extra deck consisting of 8 cards, which cannot be included in your main deck. At any point, you have access to these cards as long as you can pay both their CP cost, including the associated color, and as an additional cost, each card has a limit break cost, which means that you will use your other limit break cards as resources to cast these cards. If we're looking at the very first cards, we have Zack and Montleones. Zack has a limit break 1, meaning that out of your 8 cards in your limit break, you will cast Zack, and then you have to flip up one of your limit break cards as an additional cost, meaning you can't play that card anymore. So it adds a lot of depth to the game, in the sense that we now have permanent access to cards in a side deck format where we don't need to use resources from hand necessarily to cast them. So it adds an entire new layer of complexity that I think people are excited about, people are nervous about, and we will be going over them, I think, individually. Overall, as a mechanic, if I were to think about it, I am cautiously optimistic about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the mechanic that has changed the game the most since release, much more than crystals, much more than multi-element cards, much more than damage mechanics, all of that. This just provides a brand new dimension to the game, in which everybody has guaranteed cards, so it eliminates a lot of the does he have it or does he not. You know that your opponent potentially has these cards in their limit break deck. You want to bake them out. force them to use up their limit break resources at certain points. So it's a lot more complex. I do know that for people who are more concerned about the mechanic, they compare it to Magic's companion mechanic, in which you had access to cards from the sideboard as long as your deck met certain requirements. In Final Fantasy, this is extremely strong because, as we know, no matter the power of a forward, the forward always deals 1 damage. So any forward from the limit break is valuable as a damage source. Again, I am cautiously optimistic, but also knowing that Companion as a mechanic was essentially neutered and banned mostly in Magic. So we'll see how this pans out. I think this will be a good set to test it out, see what people think about it, see how the metagame looks and how the game's health looks off of these cards, and we'll see what the next few months have in store. But I'm for now very, very excited for this.
Yeah, cautiously optimistic is like the best phrase that I could use to describe this, because there's definitely, so I think the like comparisons to Companion like made sense when we first saw the mechanic, but I think it's pretty obvious after like playing even just a few test games that it's completely different, right? Like Companion had restrictions on the deck that you were building, and Limit Break goes into every deck, right? And I mean, yeah, there is a Companion in Magic that fits into pretty much every deck, right? But like even that, you know, I think the big thing that made Companions a pretty degenerate was like in Magic is a very at least like the formats that I've played is very like top deck heavy, right? Like it doesn't have the insane levels of searching and consistency that FF has, right? So the fact that you could have access to a card at all points in the game, right, just by meeting the conditions for it, is significantly stronger in Magic and leads to games being a lot more samey, especially with the way that they designed them. I feel like FF is kind of, well, we'll talk about some of the LB cards, but I hope that they're, you know, not going to build any like insane engine cards and put them in Limit Break, like, you know, Luris as a Magic the Gathering companion, if people know that card.
You played a little more Magic than both of us, I think, Pat, right? So
yeah.
How do you think it compares to that mechanic? How do you feel?
It's interesting because Companion, I feel like when you reveal your Companion, so for those who don't know, you have to show your Companion before you present your deck for cutting to your opponent. There's a lot because go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and so just for people who don't know what Companion is, you have to meet a deck building restriction. Like one of the Companions, for example, says that every the mana cost of every card in your deck that's like not a land has to be an odd cost, I think.
Yep.
There's one for odd, one for even.
Yeah, things like that.
So when your opponent reveals a Companion to you, you sort of can get a sense of what restrictions the deck has. Right. Mm-hmm. So like if you know that he's playing the Companion that you can only have odd cards, then you know that like you don't have to worry about any of the even cards in the format.
Right.
LB is a hidden deck, so you don't know what they're playing yet. So the first turn is still sort of obscured, which is a little different. Which is, I think, it makes a non-zero difference in how like the foundation of the mechanic. So I guess in that case, it's more similar to the Yu-Gi-Oh style, right? Where it's the extra deck is hidden at the beginning of the game. But the inherent card advantage is similar to Magic, where you'll always have a play no matter what you draw. Yep. And I think that is a closer comparison or a way to compare them. And I think that's where LB really shines and how it'll really impact the meta.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I will echo Chris's sentiment, though. I do think what you said, Pat, where the fact that we have access to these at all times, and in a game where you can discard cards, right? You don't have to draw lands. You can discard cards for CP. Essentially, every draw becomes a play, as long as you have an LB deck available. However, I think, as Chris said, this is kind of mitigated by the fact that Final Fantasy, in its current state, is the game where searching and drawing cards is essentially very, very free. Whereas in Magic, you have to, jump over 100 hoops to search a particular card. In Final Fantasy, that's like the norm, right? So already decks are very consistent, and LB doesn't really add much more consistency. It just adds flexibility to deck turns, which is where I think they're trying to go. But that will entirely depend on the design of future LB cards.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this a little bit when we get to the cards that I think are kind of egregious in LB.
Yeah.
Leo and Leela, for just spoilers, I guess.
Yeah.
The thing that worries me is that the deck building implications of Limit Break as a mechanic means that you can play extremely greedy decks, because normally the punishment for playing greedy decks is that you draw 2 cards, and if you don't have the requirements for whatever your deck's trying to do, then they're dead. And now you can discard those as live cards. That's terrifying.
Right.
Like FF13 can start running more vanilles potentially, right? Like, there's just like summon heavy decks can just pitch their summons to get forwards. Like, it's that terrifies me.
Yeah, backup heavy decks, decks that play 18, 19 backups now don't have to fear as much drawing into 2 backups if it just becomes a forward. Right?
Yep.
So, yeah. It's good.
So, something I wanted to mention too, in terms of like deck building, is that it's interesting that the LB cards, they're entirely balanced against each other and nothing else in your main deck.
Yeah.
Because the cost to cast them is based on the limit break number, which means you have to like sacrifice cards in the LB deck. The only way to compare their costs is with other LB cards, which is interesting.
Yeah,
because
I agree. I think it's right now, since there's only a limited amount of LB cards, it's very straightforward, right? You know the math just by looking at your limit break numbers. But as more cards come, the math will become a lot more complicated. Do I put 1 or 2 copies of this card? I can never cast 3, so I can only run 2, but do I run just 1 because I want to run more of the other one? That's gonna be a lot more complex.
Yeah.
As
dude, I'm already struggling with that in Ice Lightning. Like, I have 5 LB cards I want to play.
And overall, design wise, we can probably get into it after we go through each individual card. So I guess I'll save my thoughts for after that.
Okay. Yeah, but I think we spent enough time talking about the mechanic as a whole, so I think I'm down to start talking about the cards. So, you want to start us off?
Sure. So we'll start off with the fire ones, going in color order. The first one is Zach, 3 mana. Oh, sorry, 3 CP red card. Oh, sorry,
fucking
3
Magic
CP
players.
fire card. It's a job soldier, category 7, limit break 1, and when Zach enters the field, choose 1 forward, deal it 3k damage, and it has 7k power. Do we want to read out both or just discuss this one first?
Let's talk about both.
Okay.
Let's talk about both, because I mean, these are going in the same decks. Well, actually, no. Zach is going in different decks than Montleone is. I think in general, though, let's just read out both because they're on the same.
So, the second fire LB is Montleone, 8 CP fire, job archlord, category FFBE, limit break 3. When Montleone enters the field, choose a fire forward of cost 3 or less in your break zone and a fire forward of cost 5 or less in your break zone. If you control 5 or more fire backups, play them onto the field. They gain haste until end of the turn, then put 1 backup you control into the break zone, and it has 9k power.
All right. Both these are insanely strong, right? I mean, we're gonna say this about every fucking LB card that isn't Wind, so. Wind only has 1 LB card. Let's be real. Yeah, but like Mont is like the reason that people are even looking at Monofire right now. I feel like that card is so insanely strong, right? Like, what are we hitting off of Mont? Besides like every fucking card in our deck, right? But
Yeah. I mean, Bond. I think it's good that we started on Fire. These are both sides of the Limit Break deck spectrum.
Mhm.
You have Zach, who is a Limit Break 1, right? You can run 3 of them and cast 3 of them, and he's just generically average. So you want to be running him in anything that runs Fire. You're never sad to have a body. There are other implications about Zach, the fact that he's a category 7, the fact that he's a job soldier, that he just has certain what's the word I'm looking for? He has certain synergies with cards like Pod, Cloud, etc. But as a limit break card, this is like as generic as it gets, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't put this in your normal deck normally.
Mhm.
But as a limit break 1, it's okay. If I run Fire, I don't mind having one of these in my deck. Then the other side of the spectrum is Leonis. You are forced to run a mono Fire deck that wants to go to 5 backups, or that card does nothing, right? So it's interesting to see this comparison, how they're going for generically good limit breaks that are not too strong. I hope that's how the future of this goes. And very strong but very narrow, almost companion-like limit breaks, like Leonis, right?
Yeah, I think that the companion comparison makes the most sense with cards like Montleonis, and later we'll see Ace and Titus. But Montleonis especially, I feel like, is the biggest, like the strictest one. Like you're playing this in mono fire, and you have to get to 5 backups, so you're playing a specific mono fire.
Yep. And as far as I think power level of cards, I already mentioned Zach has certain synergies with Soldier Matters cards and damage, ping. I mean, 3,000 damage is okay. It gives you a little bit of reach for a lot of cards
it's
that you're
been
playing.
like really relevant. Like I've been happy to have this card.
Yeah,
turns wall into 8k pings.
Yeah, exactly. As far as Montleonis, that's a whole. I mean, the card's busted in mono fire. I can't like really. There's too much that I would talk about it. I think the card, if you're running mono fire, you're building around this. This guy just swings the game in your favor. Now, I'm sure that Pat has some characters that he wants to play. I would talk about like stuff like Tyvas and super broken stuff. But what are we playing off of Montleonis, Pat?
So that's a good question, because I've never been a mono red player yet. But Montleonis is I say because of this card. It's definitely interesting. There's I'm actually thinking of what we can do with the backup we put into the break zone. He can do things. He can do things like reset a Larcacus. He can do. There's a lot of value in, especially breaking backups that have strong enter the battlefield effects, but don't have a way to sacrifice. Like there is some value in that as well.
Like Eodolis is another one.
Right, Eodolis, a 6 CP Eodolis.
That's pretty good.
I mean,
like it reads as a downside, but there are ways to I guess abuse that. Abuse might be too strong of a word, but to utilize that and push that sacrifice in your favor. And that's where I was thinking of, because I feel like I'll let the other people decide what the good forwards are. I'm trying to get value off the backup.
I'm gonna play Arden out of this.
Dude, there's no shot we play Arden on Leonis. I wish. But yeah, we're getting another fire card as well this set that also synergizes really well with breaking backups. So I don't even think like that's like a reach either. Like I think that's going to fit really naturally, actually.
Yep. And I think moving forward forever, as we look at limit break cards, these are the 2 cards that we're going to compare it to, especially Zach. Zach is as generic as it gets. So I think the power level of limit breaks will be dictated by Zach for a long time.
Yeah, I think it is like the bar is how I agree. I agree. Yeah, anything else?
Yep.
All right, let's go to ice. All right.
Right. So our ice LBs are Victoria, a 4 CP ice forward, limit break 2, If your opponent has no cards in hand, Victoria gets plus 3k power. And when Victoria ETBs, choose a forward. If your opponent has 2 or less cards in their hand, deal that forward 7k damage. And it starts off as a 7k power forward. Our other one is Surgis, 3 CP. Limit break 1, and when Surgis ETBs, select one of the 2 following actions, choose a forward. You can either dull it or freeze it, and it's also 7k power.
Bro, what the fuck? Like, I saw Victoria and I was like, oh, this card's great. And then I saw Surgis. Is it Surgis or Surhis?
I don't know.
I don't know. But, dude, LB1 with a, like, you just always have access to a dull or a freeze? Like, dude. These are like my favorite limit break cards. Well, besides Leo and Leela, but these are my favorite like element for the LB cards.
Yeah, I think these compete with the water cards as like the generically good. I could probably consider playing this in a normal deck, and the fact that I have access to them at all times, they're very good. I think I'm gonna say this now so I don't repeat it in every one. I think your limit break ones, you always run 3 of them.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
what I'm doing.
And then this one is particularly good. So these 2 cards are great. I don't have much to say. They're just great.
So one funny interaction that I had in playtesting in the mirror is, or not even the mirror, but just like any ice versus ice matchup. Is that Victoria kills herself. So you can play Victoria in response to an opponent's Victoria. So at least some like kind of funny board states. But you also have to like have backups to be able to do that and not make Victoria into a 10k before you kill her, right? So it leads to some like really interesting. It's like a really interesting anti-aggro card because it like obviously like the 2 cards are less in hand. Synergizes with ice, but it also is like, you know, generically good against aggro who's dumping their hand out, just to be able to do 7k to something. One thing I didn't realize is the if your opponent has no cards in their hand is actually really relevant against aggro. Like she becomes a 10k blocker a lot of the time against aggro, or at the very least forces them to not play out like a card or 2 in their hand.
Yeah, I think Victoria by herself, I think Victoria and Cloud are going to change how 13 plays forever. Because going Vanille Hulk Pass is not an option. Now Victoria will kill your Vanille, and Cloud will kill your Vanille. So that is just not an option anymore. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And even, I mean, I'm a little sad about twins as well, but, you know. Not being able to pitch your hand for twins.
I'm very happy about that.
I'm a twins gamer, sorry. Yeah. And then Sir, he's just generically really good. It is kind of hard to say anything more than like it's like kind of just obviously really good, you know?
Yeah.
More than what you said.
I don't think this is the case because these are so generically good, but is there anything I'm not seeing here, Pat? Because I think these are just too generically good.
Yeah, I like their design because one of them rewards you for doing what ice does, and then the other one is sort of just like a good generic ice effect.
Yeah,
and I think that's sort of like a cool sweet spot of like what
I agree.
And
I agree.
Surges is also good as both like an aggro card and as like a, you know, if you're on the back foot kind of card, right? Like if you're against aggro, you're freezing down their forward so that you don't take like an on attack trigger, right? And then if you're trying to go for lethal, then you play it and dull something. So it's like a really like, it's like modal in like a way that isn't immediately obvious, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've played since the game's inception. I think that card in the first like 3-4 opuses, you would run 3 of that.
Yeah,
in your deck, right? So yeah.
I mean, like it's basically a 1 CP, right? So yeah, crazy. All right, anything else?
Nope.
All right. All right, wind now.
All right, so for winds, we have Ace, HCP. It is a job class 0 cadet and limit big 3. When Ace ETBs, deal 1k damage for each wind character you control to all the forwards your opponent controls. And when it attacks, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a win card, add it to your hand, and it's an 8K. The other one is Yuri, a 5 CP FFCC card. Limit Break 2. If you control 5 or more backups, Yuri gets plus 4K power. And when Yuri ETBs, you can search for one card named Shalinka of a forward of cost 2 or less and play it straight to the field. And it starts off as a 4K.
All right, let me show you exactly what I did the first time that I saw this character. I went into Materia Hunter, I typed in Shalinka, and I hit cost 2 and 1. And you know how many targets we have?
We have 2.
We have 2, and they're both, well, one of them kills a monster. Dude, this card's so dog shit until they print like a busted Shalinka.
All right, I'm gonna be that guy. So we'll talk about Ace later. I think Yuri is the card. You know, there's always a card that you read and you're like, "This is bad," and then someone breaks it or does something with it. I feel that that's Yuri for me.
Yeah. Have you broken it?
No, I haven't broken it. I haven't tested it at all, but I do see a potential to go, because last set I did try the Yuri mono Yuri deck where you play the 4-cost Yuri that's untargetable, and he if you with Leo he gets buffed, and with like Stilt Skin he gets buffed if you have a Shalinka.
Yeah.
If you get those 2 backups, the only problem was if your opponent had a way to remove the Yuri via non-targetable effects, then you're like done. Yeah. But now you kind of have one in the back row where you're like, all right, I'm just gonna play Yuri and get a Shalinka, and then this Yuri would be like 12,000 power. Oh no, this can only get better.
That is true.
I mean, it is a rare, so I don't expect much of it. But definitely Wind got the short end of the stick when it came to limit breaks, because they're just so specific that and keep in mind, I'm very happy they did that. We don't want Wind to have access to free casts off of their limit break, right? But yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's only gonna get better, I hope. And I feel like in L3 he'll be really good, maybe. But for standard, TBD.
Yeah, pretty much how I feel about it.
And then Ace, I think, doesn't quite solve the problem that Mono Wind has, which is early game, right? It just gives you more reach for what you already do best, which is late game. But I will say it's in the little bit of testing that I've done, it's surprisingly relevant.
Bro, this card's so good. I was shocked.
Yeah, versus greedy decks, if you don't have the Luso combo, just go like, hey, I happen to have 4 backups and an Atomos and something else. I'm just going to wipe your board, right? And then you have to deal with him because he's just going to give you card advantage. But he's just limited to mono Wind. None of these cards, if you're running X Wind, you're not running any of these. So Wind has the more specific limit breaks where they just don't fit into other decks as neatly as every other element.
Okay, so obviously Ace does not solve the problem that Wind has of dying to aggro, and I pray to God that they never print a card that does that, because at the moment that Wind doesn't die to aggro, like, we're getting another ban, right? So I think it's fine that Ace doesn't solve the aggro problem. Like, the fact that he just makes it so that you don't have to jump through hoops in order to get your board wipe when you've gotten set up, right? Or like, let's say you've already done your Luso turn, but your opponent's like built back up because they're also cheating, right? Like, he just means that you can just do the board wipe again, right? With like no jumping through hoops. Like, the only worry that you really have to worry about is like Amma, but like, I mean, it's an LB card. You don't have to cast it, right? Like, I think Ace isn't like really good for specifically that. I think this is like actually a really good LB card. I remember reading it the first time, being like, I don't know, but it feels really relevant.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Ace is like the cherry on top.
I don't even know if
Yeah.
it's like it's another Luso. Like I don't think that's like something that you should like dismiss, you know? Like I think that's like I mean, yeah, like whenever you're playing against Wind, it's like, oh, they just always have their Luso turn online. But like you have to jump through hoops in order to get through Luso through interaction, right? Like you got to worry about your Rosa tapping, you got to worry about your Chocobo, you know, if you don't have double Chocobo, right? Like playing your if you need to draw through Luso and whatever. Ace just like ignores all of that, right? Like that's legitimately really important.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. Maybe when players are laughing at me.
No. I think if you're playing mono Wind, you definitely run one of these, right? Because you can only cast one.
You can cast
You
two.
cast two.
You
Yeah.
can
Cast
cast two.
twice.
Yeah, you're running two.
Yeah,
of
you
these,
run two
right?
of this, three of Leela, and then you don't have any other cards to run. You just run three. You just run like three Zach to fill out your space.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I know we only have two Chilinkas, but like, am I getting anything fun out of Yuri, Pat?
So, what I think the one of the Chilinkas is the Wind Earth one that destroys a monster
Mm-hmm.
when it ETBs. That kind of effect is sort of what I was hoping from LBs in general when they first announced
Agreed.
with the effects. Like I was hoping for like corner case cards that help you shore up a matchup against like a specific deck. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you got like an Atomos, you're facing down an Atomos and you really want to get rid of it. And a Chilinka type effect that destroys a monster is sort of like your way to deal with it, right? And it's something you
Mm-hmm.
always have in your back pocket. And of course, it would be balanced in a way from its limit break cost to make it not too powerful. But that's sort of the effect I was hoping for LBs in general. Just sort of like 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 sideboard cards in Magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that that sort of enables it, but it's weird that like it does it in such a weird way.
Yeah,
Like
like
I
the
would have
problem
much
is
rather have
that
had Chalinka as the LB card.
you have to run the sideboard card in your main deck, right?
Yeah. But I think the fact that like Chilinka is, especially now that monster decks are decent, in decks that do have like Earth and Wind, Chilinka is almost a playable card, and the fact that now you have like permanent access to her,
Yeah.
it is a consideration in multi-element decks.
Oh, I think in Earthwind, yeah, you probably like if monsters, especially like Windwater monsters, the set is like a real threat. Like I think that's like a pretty easy justification, especially because Earth also doesn't have like amazing LBs either. So
Yep. I agree.
You don't really have much of a choice for what you're running. So
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I think we can move on.
Yep.
Oh.
And speaking of Earth.
Yep.
Onto the Earth LBs, we have a 4CP Shantoto, Limit Break 7.
Mm-hmm.
And when Shantoto ETBs, you may pay 5 Earth CP. When you do so, remove all forwards and monsters other than Shantoto from the game, and it is a 9k. Our other one is a 4CP Mat, which is a Job Monk, Limit Break 1. It has Brave, and when Mat ETBs until end of turn, all forwards you control, including Mat, get plus 1k power and Brave. And it starts off as an 8k.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. These are cards for sure.
I think Matt being LB1 is like nice. I mean, he's not as good as the other LB1s. Like, let's be real.
No, I think LB1 is good just because it's LB1. Eventually, this will be phased out of the game when they print more LB cards. But for now, this is what we got in Earth. So if you're running Earth, you're probably running at least one of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Toto is most definitely a mono Earth or mainly Earth card.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing your entire LB deck for the effect. But to be fair, it is an extremely strong effect. You're paying 5 plus 4 is 9, but you don't pay a card from hand, so it's basically you're paying the same thing as you're paying from the backup. to remove all 4 of the monsters from the game, I think as a Mono Earth gamer myself, I am very happy that this card exists. So
I think, yeah, in Mono Earth I can see it, but like even there, like you play this, you no longer get to play Leela. I mean, you play this as a panic button, but like at least in my experience playing LB, and this was one of the things I was hoping wouldn't happen, but I've been playing LB cards very proactively. Like, you know, I don't have a play, okay, I discard and I play Leela, right? Like this means that if you ever play Leela, you can't play this as your panic button, and so you kind of just have to hold off.
So I think you play. So I think we always play both. We
I mean, of
don't
course,
stop playing the backup because we play this.
I'm saying, like, I don't see my, like, obviously you put this in your deck because you don't have any other options, but like I don't see this as like an amazing effect, right?
I think it solves a problem that Mono Earth has more than Ace solves like the win problem. Earth is amazing when it gets to like 5 backups, and it can do like the Ingus for 1 and 2 Leonis, all that stuff. But when it's getting aggroed out, it can't really do much. The fact that you have an option to wipe the board and reset earlier and not have to wait for Shintoto, yeah, it's very costly. But sometimes this is the only option you'll have to not die, and you know that your late game is better than your opponent, then this is your option. Also, you're an Earth, you're probably running Tyro. You have access to like every LB card. So
that is true. Or if you're a Leo deck too.
Yeah, you're good. I think this card is great in main Earth decks. We really wanted it. It's not like the main reason you play it, obviously. But I'm glad it exists, and monster decks are becoming very popular. So maybe we'll see. Maybe Earth is the answer to that.
Yeah, but Earth had a answer to that last set that I feel like didn't really get played that often, right? Neo X Death.
Yeah, because
but you can search it
to that point, right? So
the problem, right, yeah, it's not an LB.
So the problem is that you like other decks wouldn't allow you to get to the point where you could search and play Neo X Death, right? This Shintoto gives you the time to go and find that guy, right? So,
or even like, I guess if you're on 1 backup, you pitch 4 cards for this, right?
100%.
So yeah. It makes sense. Like I'm not saying that it's like a bad card, and I know that it will obviously see play and get played and will be cast and be the reason that you don't lose in some games. I just like, I don't know. It reads worse to me than it did initially. Since playing LB.
It 100% is. But before, let me give you an example of like I'm playing Mono Earth versus 13. I'm gonna use 13 as an example.
Yeah, of course.
If I go turn 1, I play a backup, and they go Vanille Hope. Before, it's like, do I have the Heka in my hand, or do I have the Shintoto? I lose. If the answer is no, I lose. Now it's like, all right, I'm just gonna dump my hand and get rid of your board, right? And I have a 9K. You can't play your Lightning. You can't do anything. So, at least I get to live. Where before it's like I just immediately lose, right? So,
that deck is also playing Amma though, so it's like, well, actually, no, never mind. I'm stupid. Yeah, turn 1. Right? Ignore me.
Yeah.
All right.
I think just as like a flavor note, I think this is the LB that feels the most like an LB.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Something interesting I just thought of right now is that Limit Break cost of 7 is essentially the same as Limit Break 6, right? Like, I assume they're not going to make any Limit Break 0 cards.
No, because
I hope not.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I mean, you show less information, but it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah, it would only matter in best of 3 games, I guess, if you don't show the last LB card. But it's an interesting just side note.
Yeah, I didn't think about that actually. I pray to God that they never play an LB 0.
No, I hope not. Even if it's like a 1 CP 3K, I'm gonna play that.
But it is cool to see, like, in just out from the get-go, like what they put the LB7 effect at?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
what
like this
they're
is
like putting for 7?
yeah, like kind of like how Zach was our like benchmark for what like an average LB1 is like. I feel like this is kind of, I mean, it's our only LB7, but like this is gonna be kind of a benchmark for like, you know, if we have an LB7 card, we're gonna, you know, this is like a pretty average effect. I feel like for an LB7.
I agree. Yep.
I guess we didn't talk about like Matt at all. He's so boring.
It's a monk. It's fine.
I mean, yeah, 8K Brave on like a 2 CP body is like not bad. And we're evaluating these LB cards at 2 CP less because you don't have to draw them. You can think of them as when you play them, they're drawing themselves, is kind of how you can think about that, to justify why we evaluate it at 2 CP lower.
Yeah. I mean, if I don't have anything else to play, I'm not excited to play this card. I'm just, if I don't have anything else, then yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good synergy with Ash.
Sure.
All right, we get to move on.
Yep.
All right, to some bangers.
Oh, that's yep. Now we're good.
All right, so in Lightning, we have a 4 CP Cloud, Category 7, Limit Break 2. When Cloud ETBs, choose a forward of cost 3 or less and break it. And it has an S ability with 4 Lightning CP. Choose a forward opponent controls, break it, and it deals your opponent 1 point of damage. Our other Lightning LB card is Lightning, 4 CP, Limit Break 2. When Lightning ETBs, choose a Lightning summon in your break zone and add it to your hand. And that is a 5k. And Cloud is 8k.
Dude, these cards are so obnoxious to play around.
So, Ice Lightning didn't get any good cards on the main set, but damn, it got like really good.
Dude, I'm running my Opus 21 deck.
Yeah, so there's no reason that Cloud should have been printed. If it was 2 or less, I'd see it. 3 or less is way too good for an 8K. That also like just limit break 2, so you can play like 2 of them. Lightning is a little more niche, but if you're playing Lightning, you're very likely playing Lightning summons. So putting one off in your limit break deck is never a bad idea. These are just great. Yeah. I don't have any complaints. They're amazing. I like I said, Ice Lightning they're eating really well with these limit breaks.
Like even like Lightning reads like, you know, again, it's hard to evaluate these cards as like for the first time reading limit break cards, because like Lightning is a card that you would not run in your main deck. But as an LB card, when you always have access to it, you have your Ramu, whichever one you're running, probably like 020 or whatever, immediately, right? Like she can get back the Ramu and haste herself. She can get back Ramu and haste something else and dull it, right? She can get back the 2 CP Ramu and kill your 2K or the 1 CP Ramu, right? It gets back Ixion too. Like I remember people's initial reactions being kind of mixed on this card, but Jesus Christ, it's so fucking annoying.
No, she's fantastic. A lot of the problems that we have in Lightning is that we sometimes have to discard summons early to play our backups.
Yeah.
And she just solved that problem.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know where your opponent is playing, right? And you discard, you're like, do I discard this Ixion?
Yep.
And you do, and then it turns out they're playing twins.
Yep.
Right? And then you go, doesn't matter. I'm just going to get it back and play it. Right? Cloud is a card that a couple of sets ago I would play this card.
Main deck.
We used to play Kuja, and Kuja would do the same thing, and he would deal us a point of damage. This guy doesn't even do that, right? Yeah, the Cloud's really good. I don't have anything to say. Thank God they didn't make him like a job soldier. They're like, we're gonna make him a writer.
Oh my God, reason. Dude! If this is a soldier, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, these are great. I have nothing else to say other than if you're playing Lightning, you're playing 2 of the Cloud always, and you might be playing 1 of the Lightning.
Are we ever using the S on Cloud?
I was just about to ask.
I thought not, but then I literally just saw for like
Like
while we were
40
waiting for
minutes
this
ago.
video, we saw like Viridian playing a wind lightning deck that ran the wind lightning cloud, and he literally won off of this S. I think if you're running Lightning X and you have the capacity to run a cloud, you can, and then just have the S. But it doesn't matter. Like to me, the S ability is just icing on the card. I think this is just a straight up break. Anytime you're playing a deck that has lightning, you're always playing this card. For now.
Mhm. Yeah, this is like gonna be deck defining. I feel like where like if your deck just can't deal with your opponent being in lightning for cloud, like RPP for example, you know, it just it makes running 3 or less forwards really hard. Yeah. Anything else about these cards before we move on?
I guess the only other thing is just from economy wise, Lightning is essentially free, which is cool. So
Yeah, which makes sense being like a 5K, right? So
yeah.
yeah. All right. Let's move on to water.
All right. So for our water LBs, we have a 5 CP Titus, category X, and it's Job Guardian. Limit break 3. When Titus ETBs, if you control 8 or more forwards and or backups, you may pay 3 water CP. When you do so, select up to 3 of the 3 following actions. Choose a forward, put it at the bottom of its owner's deck. Choose a backup, put it on top of its owner's deck, and draw 2 cards. And it is a 9K. And then we have a 3 CP Leo, Job King. Limit break 1. When Leo enters the field, draw a card, and it's a 3K.
All right, I want to hear your guys' opinions on these cards before I give mine.
So I think we're back to fire in the sense that we have a very generically good card. If you're playing water, most likely you're playing Leo, and we have a card that's basically forcing you into mono water. Leo, I don't know. I think this should have cost 4 or be like limit break 2. The fact that it draws a card on entry and costs 3 essentially is like negative CP. He gains value, so he's really, really, really good. And Tito's in mono water, giving us the option to not entirely depend on Leviathan Lena. Have like another big play to do, because let's be real, if you get this effect off, you most likely win. Is really good. I do like that it gives mono water a little bit more reach, other than depending on the combo. So Tito's great for mono water. Leo a little bit too good on average. I don't
bit.
like this card. I don't like this card.
Bro, this card's broken.
No, I think this card costs 4. I don't know, man. I'm not very happy about this card.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if we're going at the same rate as the Lightning before, which was limit break 2 and 4 CP, this is just better on both of the tuning knobs, right?
100%.
1 CP cheaper, 1 LB cheaper.
Yep.
The tuning power doesn't matter at all. Anything that kills a 3K kills a 5K.
I mean, Lightning is tutoring, so it's a little different, or like recurring a specific card, so it's a little different. But like, I mean, you're right in terms of like CP evaluation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, but that can sometimes be worse if you don't have a summon in your break zone. Lightning is blank.
Yep.
Right. Leo is always live.
Yeah.
I don't like this card. I think
Titus is obviously good, and I feel like there's not too much to say that people haven't already said, so I want to focus on Leo. So my biggest worry when I first saw LB as a mechanic was, well, they've only shown us very reactive cards, right? Like, if they ever print anything that is a proactive card that I want to be playing, like, regardless of what my opponent is doing, that is probably not going to be very healthy for the game. And then they printed a card that was even better than I thought they were going to print. Like, it's just like it. Like I was saying before, this lets you run so greedy, and not worry about bricking, because it doesn't matter if your cards are dead, because they're not dead. You discard them for Leo, right? And you're gaining value, right? You're getting your body that can block, right? And you're happy if it blocks because it dies, and you can draw another card off of another cast of Leo. Just like it. Yeah, we're gonna see very greedy decks come across because of this card and Leela, the dark card that we're gonna see. I'm already playtesting a deck that is extremely greedy because of this Leo.
Yep.
And we'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, man, I don't know.
I mean, I think these are just too generically good. Like,
Yeah.
we're not doing anything too fun with. We're winning the game with Titas, and we're just drawing a card and getting a body off of Leo. There's nothing like much more to say about that.
Yeah, like I guess it definitely, like, I remember showing this to my friend who just started playing the game, and I showed him this, and I was like, this card's broken. He's like, is it? But I think, like, as a new player, like, you know, reading a 3 CP 3K that just draws a card doesn't read very well. But, like, I think this is, like, exemplary of, like, what makes Limit Break, like, such a powerful mechanic, that it can take a card like this and make it, like, one of the most powerful cards in the set.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, looking at these two cards side by side.
I know, right?
So they actually work so well together in mono water, right? So Leo gives you the additional body that you need to get the Thetis. It's like, I don't know, man. I don't like Leo. I think it's a mistake, but whatever.
Agree. Yeah. All right, anything else before going to the other bigger mistake, in my opinion?
I think Leo's the biggest mistake, but okay.
I think Leo. I think they're, like, equally pretty big mistakes, but I'm more salty about this next card.
Yeah.
So, Pat, wanna read us off this one?
Yep. So we have a dark LB card, 5 CP, Little Leela, Limit Break 1, and when Little Leela attacks, choose a forward opponent controls. It loses 7k power until end of turn, and it is an 8k.
So I think okay, here's my justification for why I think this is, like, a bigger mistake than Leo. I think Leo's a massive mistake. I think this is an even bigger mistake because it's colorless. Especially,
it's LB1. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
That's
also a huge mistake. Yeah.
I think the designers overestimated how much we run dark and light cards in our decks.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, it's fine. You can't cast it. No, we don't run light and dark cards unless you're running, like, what are we running?
Bro,
like,
I'm running this in Shinryu decks.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't even matter. It's in the Limit Break. The fact that this is a dark card that you kind of have to answer, and it's Limit Break 1. That's the part that pissed me off. I expected dark. First of all, I expected light and dark cards to not even, like, come in this set. I thought they would come later. Second, I thought, okay, light and dark card are going to be balanced by being like Limit Break 3.
Yeah.
Or something like that, right? The fact that this is Limit Break 1, it is playable in every deck. I'm telling you guys right now, I know, thank God it's a hero and not a legend. Get 3 of these, because you're going to.
Dude, I'm getting 12 of these, bro.
Yeah. So the fact that you have permanent access to a forward that you can't respond to, it doesn't have an entry effect. It's an 8k generic forward that, yeah, it seemed, again, I wouldn't run this in a normal deck, but the fact that I have access to this, and once I play it, you kind of have to answer it, because it's just going to kill your forwards, is great. Again, I will say it again, Limit Break 1 was a mistake.
Yep.
we won't even get into the fact that like Chaos Arc decks have way better game against mono decks because of this card. Because now, before they had to like hard cast Chaos, now they can just play a forward and then Chaos. That's sorry, Arc. It's insane. I hate everything about this card. So yeah, you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe I hate this card a little more.
What about you, Pat?
I think you guys said everything that I was thinking. It's amazing to have like colorless card that doesn't have like the detriment of it being in your deck and drawing a card you can't discard CP for.
Yep.
Exactly.
And just a forward with a strong attack trigger on Limit Break 1. And it's 8K too. Like
I know, right? It's like this is like a good body.
yeah. Like it's good, yeah. Don't really have much else to say about it. Like it is interesting to see like why they put this at LB1. Like what they were expecting out of it. It's gonna be in like every deck. Like
literally
see it
on
every board. It's just gonna be literally
both
sides of the board.
That's what I was thinking most of all. I was thinking when we get to competitive season and you get to see streams, you're gonna see this card on both sides of the board.
Yep.
Very likely. And it's gonna get stale. So we'll see.
So like again with like being a proactive card too. If this said like choose a forward opponent controls or lose 7k on ETB, like this card's in my opinion like much better. Like as a maybe actually no. If it costed like LV like 3 and it had that effect too, right? My problem is that this card is continuous value. I mean, I think that actually ETB minus 7k would be stronger. So, but I think it would be less of like a design mistake, right? Because it would still be a reactive card if it was like that. Like this is a proactive card. You're playing this and you're killing future forwards, right?
Exactly. Like after I Total White, let's give an example, right? I Total White and you do whatever. Let's say you played a monster or played 2 monsters, then the card that you gave it as an example where ETB minus 7 would be useless. Whereas this is, I'm just going to play this because I don't have anything else to do.
Exactly.
Right? And you have to answer it, by the way, because anything that you play that's under 7k, it's going to die. And also, this reads unblockable. So, whatever. It's fine. It's fine. They know what they're doing.
I pray Hobby Japan knows what they're doing with this card.
I think they overestimated how much light and dark we run in our decks. They expected us to not be able to cast this because we're playing Shinryu or we're playing other light and dark cards, and that's not the case. I think light and dark cards are very fringe. They forgot that Arc exists. Right? Because if it was like 3 CP, 5k, it's like it's fine, right? But the fact that it's 5, so it reduces your arc to 4, means that you're essentially paying the same for arc that you would have otherwise, and you still get an 8k body out of the deal
with continuous value.
With continuous value, right? So I think this makes Chaos Arc decks, which were already very good, but their one weakness was monocolored decks. The fact that now you get a body on top of your arc can tilt that scale a little bit more towards favoring those decks. And as someone who plays 4-color and knows how bad Chaos Arc can be, I can guarantee we don't want mirror matches of this deck to be the standard. I guarantee you right now. So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out.
Yeah. So going back to what we said at the beginning, I am hopefully optimistic. I hope that this goes well.
I would be more optimistic if it said Limit Break 2 or Limit Break 3. But the fact that it says Limit Break 1 means that every single deck is running whatever their color is and 3 of these or 2 of these. All right, so whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine.
All right. Anything else before we close out Limit Break? Any closing thoughts?
No?
Just that
From
I'm hoping in the future for more reactive type LB cards that you were talking about, proactive and reactive. Um, I feel like that's sort of the sweet spot of how this mechanic plays out and how it fits into like the meta.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know how I feel about these proactive ones, but
we're gonna see a lot of really strong decks this set. The power creep, like in the main set, was like not too high. The power creep because of LB is like
mhm.
astronomically really high.
I agree. But again, like I said, we're seeing a change in the game. If it's good or bad, we'll see.
Yeah,
But I think
power creep isn't necessarily a bad thing.
no, and I think that Limit Break is so new that if they have to make adjustments to the rules on how you play them, it might be possible now. So we'll
Yeah.
see if they um um how much they are looking at the health of the metagame before they make changes. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the other stuff.